also, I'll quickly tell you about this. He found out he had amnesia, and he suffers from short-term suffers from short-term memory loss. Suffers from amnesia, and also had some sensory problems, which he still has had ever since. And also he can't remember things in the short term. He has a short-term memory loss, but can remember. He had memory loss, but which meant he couldn't remember things short term, but he could remember things. Any long-term memories he can remember. And when they went on stage with him to do shows, when he came back, he said, "Oh, we'll come and feel the noise," and he went like, "How does it go?" And then he was tugging Jim Lee and he said, Jim, and they went like, "What? How does it go?" And then whilst Noddy's talking to the audience, Jim would whisper to him, and it starts like this. And he said, "Oh, we'll do this," which this song, which later became #1 later on at the end of 1973. And he went like, "How does it go?" And then Jim was whispering to Don at the back. He said, "It starts like this." And then afterwards, once he was away, he knew it then afterwards. And also in their last #1 single, which is also one of their which is actually one of their most popular songs, "Merry Christmas Everybody," came out it was actually recorded in the middle of an August heatwave in New York City, and then it came out at the end of 1973, and it was #1 for 5 weeks, and it was the Christmas #1 of 1973 as well. And also that, I could say it this way, it made Slade. Sorry, the camera went off. It made Slade in a way like a Christmas hit band, because they couldn't really develop. You couldn't really develop this your credibility. 1 minute, back again. And also, I completely forgot to mention, really sorry about this, there was a song which Slade written in 1972, which was called Goodbye to Jane. It was called Goodbye to Jane. That came out in November of 72, and that reached #2 in the charts. And also, Dabby dozy thing what Noddy Holder's got on, it is the top hat with mirrors. I'll say once again in a minute, any second now, top hat with mirrors, and one more time. The top hat with mirrors, when I mentioned that earlier on, your Noddy Holder, when he wore it on stage, he could shine all these lights on the audience, shine all these. You could shine all these different types of lights on the audience and move the hat around, and then it would reflect off his hat and shine on the audience, and that hat became a very big symbol of the glam rock years, really, actually. And also, anyway, Merry Christmas Everybody is one of their actually their best-selling single, and also the one, I'll put it this way, the one that most people tend to remember, and also, I could say, and also Merry Christmas Everybody, that came out in November of 73, and did you know the song was based around discarded melodies which Noddy Holder got written in 1967, when it was still the swinging 60s and hippie flower power era. Yep, that's something for you, how the song came, one part of how the song came about. And also the song came about because they wanted to make a very really optimistic optimistic, happy and cheerful Christmas song, and because at the time, because economically, I had a look up about this at the time, because economically in '73 the country was, Noddy Holder put it this way, the country was up the creek, because in 1973 miners' strikes, everybody was on strike, and you know, over money and everything, and also, and everybody really wanted something to cheer, something to cheer them up. I'm going to explain about a couple of the lines for you. Well, anyway, yep. Well, anyway, and you wanted the song to reflect a British Christmas as well. I'm going to talk about some of the lines and where it came from. Yep. I'm only going to talk about a few examples. I won't talk about them all because obviously I would be here all day talking about it. Anyway, the line which had there was a line at the beginning where, "Are you hanging up the stocking on the wall?" That came about where I think that came about where you know, where Noddy Holder would ask his, you know, if his wife lets him, he would, you know, hang up his stocking somewhere because you're on the wall at Christmas, because it's a tradition at Christmas. There was a line on there, "Does your granny always tell you that the old songs are the best?" I think, you know, I was, and also Noddy mentioned at one point where, you know, and then you know about the line, "Does your granny always tell you that the old songs are the best?" And then she's up and jiving with the rest, because yeah, I think probably. Because you know maybe after a couple of sherries, after a grandma comes, I tell you, you know, for Christmas, I don't mean all of them, but maybe, you know, some could say, some could say that they tended to like songs with, like, in their day more than songs which sound a bit modern, but after a couple of sherries, they could be up and jiving with the rest, like that. She's up and jiving with the rest. And also, "Do you ride up on the hillside?" was related to you're about snowy weather, and also a white Christmas, because also, and nowadays white Christmases, the last white Christmas I remember was at the beginning of this decade, 2010, and we haven't had one since. But I will say, I think we could get one any year soon, maybe, probably. And also this is and also, did you know, in the last century, this is a quick like fact for you about white Christmases, there were only 7 white Christmases over the whole of the 20th century in the UK. Because of the weather pattern. So yep. Well, anyway, back to Slade. Well, anyway, and also for the line "Look to the future now," he really wanted it to be optimistic. I'll say again, and also the chorus. That'll be the last thing I'll talk about. So here it is. "Merry Christmas, everybody's having fun." You're about, you know, everybody having a real good fun at Christmas, and also at Christmas also, it's also a time to spend with, you're spending with family as well, and really enjoying that period, and also you're inviting people over as well, and quite a few other things. Yep. So yep. Anyway, that reached #1 in 1973, and it remained there for 5 weeks into January 1974, and it was also the Christmas #1 that year, and it established the race, the now official Christmas #1 race, which has been going on for now. This is the 43rd year that it's been, that it will be happening, if my memory serves me correctly. Well, I don't know why I said that. I'm not that old. Well, anyway, that reached #1 in '73, and also and by mid-January 1974, it was still #1, and then it was still well into the charts, well into February 1974. And it also beat another themed Christmas song by a rival group, Wizard, which was "I wish it could be Christmas every day." And that one reached #4, and Elton John released a Christmas song around the same time as well, called "Step Into Christmas." Anyway, Slade's song reached #1 for 5 weeks, and it was in mid-January. It was still #1, and it was still well into the charts as we got into February 1974. Anyway, I'm going to quickly talk about a couple of albums as well. Their third album, called Slade, was a very, very big, successful album. It's actually one of their most successful albums. It reached #2 in Britain, and also in 1972, along with a few singles, and also became one of their highest charting albums in America. But although in America they weren't really as popular as the rest of the world, because yeah. Well, anyway, we move into 1974. They released another album called All New, Borrowed in Blue, which came out in February. It was actually their third #1 album, because actually, sorry, I got a bit muddled up. Slade reached #1, and there was a compilation album called Sladist, which reached #1, and then, well, here are the covers to these two albums, which I've been telling you about. First, this one, Slade, it's got the 4 members on the cover with the band's name on their thumbs and doing a signature thumb pose. And as well, Sladist, released the year after in October 1973, had all their biggest songs up to that point released on there. So yeah, back to me, live. This album, called All New, Borrowed in Blue, reached #1 as well, so they had 3 #1 albums. That came out in February. Here is the Old New, Borrowed in Blue album cover with the band members facing each other, and also this album came out in America as Stomp Your Hands, Clap Your Feet. And also, some of the singles on there marked a change for the band in style, I would say, but they still kept the glam rock style. They released a single a few months before Merry Christmas called My Friend Stan. It was piano based, and it sounded like a novelty song. When I sorry for looking at the screen on my camera. If you could see my eyes drifting to the right. I was just having a look at my camera screen for a minute. Actually, a few minutes, actually. When my friend Stan's got a funny old man. Yeah, but still, despite it sounding like a novelty song, it was still quite popular. It reached #2 in the charts. And then afterwards, 1974, I'm going to move forward to April 1974, Slade released a more ballady track called Every Day, which made #3 in the charts at the time. And also, that song, with a few other songs which I mentioned, showed a more softer side to the band and gentle side of the band, and as the opposite of their your very loud, brash, very loud, brash, and fabulous rock sound. And also, I think I've got to say, I've bought myself a Slade compilation last year, and I've got to say their material, all their material on that is actually, I think, in my opinion, quite fabulous, fandabidozi as well. And a few people described it when I was looking up about Slade before this video, about the tune. I think he said the tunes were raucous, and you know, you're loud, brash, and classic, and caucus as well. So yep. Well, anyway, moving on to 1974. Yep, Slade were still in their peak at the time, but 1974 as well was the beginning of a long decline in popularity, which lasted for 6 years. And then afterwards, later on in the year, they released a more, went back to the to the guitar-driven glam rock sound with a song called "The Banning Man," which reached number 3, and Every Day reached number 3 as well. So yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going to move on to later on in 1974 to try to get themselves even further. Slade filmed and released later on in the year and beginning of 1975 a motion picture music film. It was called Slade in Flame. It was about a 1960. It's set in the 60s, and it's about this